Good morning, Julia.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm great. How about yourself?
I'm fine. The music did not want to stop. We were just going to keep having music like all
Maybe
morning.
we should have a dance break.
Oh. and we have, what are you saying? And this after we were in Stevens County last night. We were very happy to be invited to Stevens County last night, and we went to visit them and had a very nice time with them and did our dark money presentation. And so thank you very much, Stevens County, for inviting us out. I think they were very attentive and very interested in that. So, you know, that's a good thing. We'll see. Yeah. So Wednesday we had Sam Sorbo on our show, and I hope you got a chance to watch that because it was very interesting. And Julie and I still today are talking about what one thing, Jules, what one thing did she say that just blew us away?
Prioritize your children.
Yeah, you would think
Bottom
that
line.
as a homeschooler, I would have, thought but she had this point where she was talking about you can sit down and you can make lists, and that's what we do. We make pros and cons lists. And she said, but then you have this, but this is good, but then that's bad. And that doesn't really tell you anything, because what's your main focus? I mean, what's the actual priority? And so we forget to prioritize our kids.
She said the rewards are endless.
Yes.
When you prioritize your children.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to be with them all the time and educating them in their strengths and in the things that you value is extremely important to do.
Right. And I know that. I just graduated my last one. So I'm without any more homeschoolers in my home, and it's devastating and sad, frankly. I miss my kids. So it was, sometimes you don't have the best days, but overall I would never trade it for anything else. So as we were looking up Sam Sorbo the other day and trying to tell you guys a little bit about what Sam's doing other than just samsorbo.com, I happened to find out that she was she was actually an advisor to an organization. I'm going to share my screen here with you so that you can see what I'm looking at. She's actually an advisor to an organization called Public School Exit. And you can see her picture actually right there. Yeah. She is, this is an organization that I never knew anything about. But then as I was looking around on this particular website, I happened to notice that there's a person on the website that we know.
Just a very dear friend.
Yes, Pastor Paul Blair from Liberty Church is on is on this website. He's actually the pastoral support for this particular organization. So we wanted to talk with him about public school exit today and some other things. So I'm going to bring on Pastor Paul this morning so that we can chat with him about these things. So how are you this morning, Pastor?
I am doing great, ladies. It's good to be with you. I've got my coffee, actually my second cup. So we've got the last day of Vacation Bible School here at church.
Oh
So
boy.
I am locked and loaded and excited to be on the show with you today.
So you're gonna have to really get going since it's VBS
Well,
today.
Before all the children.
fortunately, yeah. Well, fortunately, I don't have to do anything with VBS. I just make an appearance here and there, and take pictures, pat them on the head, say good job, and then I come back to my office.
Okay, we won't tell anybody about that though. Okay, so we won't mention. So, Julia and I have known you a long time. I mean, well over a decade. I mean, all the way back to the Tea Party years. We go back that far.
Been in the battle together.
Yeah. So as long as we have known you, let's see, when did you start you started school at your church, and I can't remember when that was. Was it 14?
Oh, it's been probably 10 or more years ago. Initially, Jenny, my children were attending Christian Heritage Academy in Oklahoma City, which was a principal approach school, and I had known Ralph Bullard for, well, quite frankly, the Bullards had known the Blairs literally all of my life. So I'd been friends with Ralph for a long time, knew what they stood for, knew the kind of school they were, and that's where my kids were going to go. And fortunately, we were able to afford to put them there. And then initially we started a branch. They wanted to try a satellite. So we had CHA North, which was just an elementary school, in our church for about 3 years. Didn't cash flow with them. I'm not sure what the reasons were, but nevertheless, they decided to pull the plug on it. So we went ahead and kept our own school going. We had Liberty Christian Academy, which was primarily elementary school, and we tried to keep the cost very affordable. As a matter of fact, we lost money on every student, but we wanted to try to do what we could as a church to provide an alternative to the public schools for our families and families in the communities. But running a school is just boy, it's a headache. And right now, I think we have the perfect balance, and it's what we are promoting to our other pastors in our Liberty Pastors training camps. We do pastor training camps around the country. We've trained 1,400 pastors so far, basically in comprehensive biblical worldview to start looking at every area of life through the lens of Scripture. So that basically there's nothing off limits. And then one of the next steps we give these pastors is doing what we do now. We have 4 different homeschool co-ops that work with our church, and we literally provide them facilities free of charge, and they can have their co-op day here at Fairview. So we are now able to help, I think 300 or 400 children with their education. And it's a lot less of a headache for this guy than when we were running our own school.
Well, but here's the thing. The title of your church, you used to be Fairview Baptist Church.
Right.
Now you're Liberty Church.
Right.
Well, the title of your church basically says it all, Liberty. So,
Mhm.
I mean, to me, anyway, if we're going to, jump off the platform of liberty, it seems to me like that's the solution that provides the most liberty for everybody involved. Because, what's to say that the school curriculum that you offered isn't really necessarily what some people want. So now you have really the best of both worlds. Like you said, you're not administrating something, which can be problematic, but not only that, you're allowing 4 separate organizations to use your church to the best of their abilities to help those children become educated. So just out of curiosity, are you this is probably a stupid question. Are you frustrated as a pastor that so many churches are completely empty during the week?
Absolutely. And let me just say this, and if it stomps on toes, then it stomps on toes. But we are called to make disciples. And that's one thing we emphasize to pastors in our Liberty Pastor boot camps. We're not a disciple literally means a follower of Jesus. That's what the term Christian means. They were first called Christians in Antioch. And from the Jewish aspect, I mean, a rabbi would have his talmidim, his students, and his students would be told to follow their rabbi and be taught. We're supposed to be making disciples. And what we do in America now is we try to recruit church members, and we want fannies and
Yes.
seats, and we don't want to actually disciple anybody because we don't want to offend them. So we
Right.
give them some pop psychology to keep them coming back, and we build bigger churches, bigger auditoriums. And 60-70% of America says, oh yeah, we're Christian, we belong to a church. And then we can't even figure out how many genders there are. So obviously we're not doing a very good job as pastors. And we aren't supposed to be making converts. We aren't supposed to be making church members. The Great Commission says to go and make disciples. And a disciple is not just a follower of Jesus on Sunday morning. A disciple is to be a 24/7 follower of Jesus. So
Yeah.
as a pastor, my job is to do my best to teach my congregation that's been entrusted to me how to follow the Lord and glorify the Lord in every phase of their life. So our homes should look different and function different from the world's. Our
Right.
business ethics should be the highest in the community. Our work ethic should be higher than anybody else at the company that we work for. Our integrity and honesty, how we handle money. And the Bible talks so much about how to handle money, yet most Christians live their lives up to here in debt and then pastors wonder why they aren't tithing. And then even our politics should bring glory to the Lord. And, of course, where the sweet spot is with you ladies, I've been on this for a long time, which is why we did the Christian school. When we were young, I went to public school here in Edmond, and I can remember all the way back in the second grade having one of my classmates' father, who was a Methodist pastor, and back in the 60s, Methodists were still rock solid, came in just for Christmas break and read the Christmas story and gave everybody a Gideon's New Testament. That
Wow.
was well, that's the way school
That
used to
was
be
a
at the
long
time.
time ago.
Oh yeah, but that's the way school used to be. Well, now we've learned that they've been indoctrinating our kids with evolutionary bull for years, and
Yes.
now they've just gone
Yeah.
over the top. They've just unhinged with what they're doing now with the critical race theory and the LGBT and all this nonsense.
And
So
furry.
yeah, but even before what we've seen in the last 5 to 10 years, even the decade before that, when you have a kid in church 1 hour a week or maybe 2 hours a week, and then they are in the government schools being taught secular humanism for 40 hours a week, we are going to lose that battle 100% of the time. Our
Right.
Well, and
kids
that's
are going
what
to
we've
get to a
said.
point. Yep, yep,
And
yep.
that's what Sam Sorbo was talking about on
Mhm.
Wednesday too, was about how, you can't possibly send your kids
Yeah,
to this place and then think that you really know them. And then that's your big job, right? As a
yeah,
parent, is to know your kids, because she said, what did she say? They were made just for you, or she said it in
Yeah.
some like
Yeah.
perfect way, you
Right.
know, um, and it's very true. I mean, God gave us our children. I have 5. They're all completely different people. And the whole idea is to get to them on their level, which helps them the most learn the things and keep them, on the hard drive for the longest point of time. So you've been involved in this for a very long time. What about this public school exit? I mean, can you tell us something about this organization? I mean,
How can
well,
they help? Yeah.
it was actually, I think Colonel Ray Moore was was probably the father of this movement, because he was passionate about homeschooling. Oh, I think 30 years ago, and quite frankly, 30 years ago, I don't think any of us, anyone else, really saw the sense of urgency, but he saw it coming. Of course, my sons are now 30. I'm a grandparent now. But when my kids were in school up through maybe 15 years ago, even then, I wanted them in a good, solid Christian school. But, it's just progressively gotten worse. The COVID, peeled the cover off of what's actually going on with our kids, and parents were able to get just infuriated over it. But I've been a part of Public School Exit for a long time, and we now work together with Public School Exit as part of our Liberty Pastor boot camps. Because most parents, I believe, and I'm drawing probably from my own experience on this, most parents are scared to death to try to educate their children. we have been taught that at age 5, we drop them off down to kindergarten, and the public schools do it. And then we pick them up at 18, and we take them from their diploma in high school and drop them off to university. And we pick them up at 22, and then they get married, and we've done our job. Well, yes,
Yeah.
we've come to find out not so much. But most parents don't know what's another option. How do I haven't been trained in this. I'm not an expert in English or an expert in whatever. So how do I do this? And that's what Public School Exit does. I mean, they will literally walk you through and introduce you to different curricula that's out there, different organizations in each states, and literally hold your hand and help you get started, whether it's a one-room schoolroom at your church, whether it's just you homeschooling at home with your children. So they basically take the fear out of it for parents and then help them walk down that path to becoming homeschool parents.
Well, and they apparently have a how-to manual for rescuing our children, and you can actually get the booklet here, and it's really super easy to find. It's publicschoolexit.com. So it's all one word, publicschoolexit.com. I'll pull it all the way up to the top so you guys can see that. So when I was looking around on this website, I thought, holy cow, if I'd have had this when I started, because that was the other thing that we were talking to Sam about the other day. That was kind of funny, is we were talking about, because neither one of us put our kids in homeschool first. We both, she and I, moved to areas where we thought they had really good public schools, and we were going to be able to put our kids in there. And so she said the same thing that I thought, and I thought it was hilarious. We both knew of homeschoolers, and we were like, oh, those people are weird. And they let their kids run around all day, and they let their kids, they do all these things. And my kids are in school, and these kids are out doing things. And it just hit me how indoctrinated we are as parents. I mean, and I even said, about the eponymous Christmas song, about, and mom and dad can hardly wait for school to start again. We've been so indoctrinated that, and if you even come out and say, it used to be when we first started homeschooling, and I know it was even worse for the parents who have been homeschooling a long, long time. But when we first started homeschooling, and then, rote began and we got involved, we would have teachers who would come out and say, you can't homeschool your kids at home. You have no idea what you're doing. And then I would go, well, let's see, I have a teacher certificate. So let's talk about that. But the point of the matter is you have teachers who are literally telling parents that they can't educate their own children. And Sam made another really great point too. And I hate to keep talking here, and I'll turn that over in a second, but she made a really good point that I thought was phenomenal. She said, I don't want to denigrate teachers, because I know there are a lot of good teachers out there in the system. There's some really horrible ones, but there are some really great teachers out there. But she said, here's the thing. You don't have to be stuck in that situation. Why don't you get out of that situation and take over as a tutor, helping some parents homeschool their kids, or get involved with this homeschool exit, or get involved with Liberty Church or their own church to try to get, something different done for children, so that they're not in a system that isn't only not helping parents, but certainly isn't helping children.
Well, and another point that Sam made is, as far as authority goes, every time the school says you have to do this, not what your parent says. Every time the school says, undermines the parent's authority, which they do all day, every day, they are increasing the likelihood that your child will also have no respect for your authority. So when you keep that in mind, it explains a lot about our society.
One thing that should have taken or lessened the pressure from moms that think, oh, I'm not trained to teach my children. over the last couple of years, when you see what's happened to our public school teachers, and then you see the outcome, how far below grade level most children are in reading, how far below grade level most children are in math. And of course, now math is racist and they're not taught true American history. Quite frankly, the bar's been lowered so much. Nobody's going to love their child more than their mom.
Right.
And no one has the child's best interests at heart more than mom. And with the workbooks, the textbooks, the workbooks, teachers' manuals, uh, I have complete confidence now that I know what I do know, that every mom that's listening to this podcast or listening to this show has the capability of doing a better job of educating their children. And so that pressure should be taken off the board now.
Excellent point. So let me ask you this. You've been out training pastors to kind of help them move their congregations in this direction. So what do you say to parents? We're at a really great time in the year right now because this is summer and Julie and I are really trying to hit the homeschool thing pretty hard right now because parents can make that decision at this point in time so they don't have to come August put their kids back in the system. Do you have something, that you could share with parents, a way to kind of talk maybe to their own churches and their own pastors about doing kind of what you're doing at Liberty Church?
Well, that's going to be on a church by church basis. It just depends on the church you go to. And that may be one of the criteria that help you choose what church you do decide to go to.
Yeah.
But some pastors are very resistant. Quite frankly, every time when the church is closed for 5 days a week, it makes the job easier. And we don't have stuff going on around here, then don't have to clean it as much. Things don't break as often, and don't have the headaches, don't have the noise. But the reality is that's not what God has entrusted us these resources
Yeah.
to use. We're supposed to use them for His glory the best we can. So from our perspective, once we get done teaching pastors, they to think biblically about every area of life. And quite frankly, on the opening night of our 3-day, we get pastors away at a very nice hotel. We want them to bring their wives because their wives have to be fully on board with them. And then we just challenge them to start thinking a little bit. We ask a question: what part of your life is Jesus not the Lord over? Then we let that set for a moment. And then we follow it up and say, those are the only subjects you're not allowed to talk about in church. Because every pastor comes out of seminary and they've been taught, oh, I can't talk about politics, or I can't talk about this, or I can't talk about that. That's controversial. Oh, really? So Jesus isn't Lord over your politics, or Jesus isn't Lord over your sex lives, or Jesus isn't Lord over your families. Well, that's obviously a contrary to fact premise. So
Right.
that's easy to knock down, and then they're open. And we start teaching them how to think biblically. Then we give them some action steps. And one of the prime action steps we ask them to do is go to a public school exit, open up your church, and partner. That's a simple start. Partner with a local homeschool that's already in existence. If not, they can walk you through to starting your own. But if we took every church in America and we had those open, at least 4 to 5 days a week, we could provide a respite or rescue for
Oh,
so
yeah.
many of our children.
So,
And, and part of what we tell our pastors is, none of us individually can change America, but we're not supposed to. I mean, it's really the Nehemiah principle, where they rebuilt the wall of the city of Jerusalem in a miraculous record 52 days by every family just took responsibility for their section of the wall. So we
right.
encourage pastors, you take care of your congregation and your community around you. And then hopefully you'll be partnered with 10 other pastors across the city that are doing the same thing. And if you have that kind of an impact, boy, you can make a substantial difference in the future direction of those citizens and in that community. Get enough
And
cities like that, you can transform a state. Get enough states, perhaps we can transform the union. But
and
we really try to make it as simple as possible. But it's really just an act of the will. The pastors have to decide, yes, this is the right thing to do. We know biblically that God told parents that they were given the responsibility to make sure that their children were raised in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. So that's the biblical perspective. that government, civil government's not responsible for educating our children, and we're not supposed to be teaching them some woke babble. We are, if there really is a God, and everywhere you look, there's evidence that he's there, and if the tomb really was empty 2,000 years ago, and there's ample evidence to tell us that it was, then Jesus is the Lord. We should be following that admonition.
Well, and we have a Dana Mooney who's watching just made a really good point. She said as parents, we're teaching our children every day. I
Right.
mean, so you're teaching them every day anyway. So, to think that you can't is, kind of contrary. So I know that you've been out of the state and you go to Florida frequently. But what about pastors here? Are there pastors in the state that are taking advantage of this, that people who watch this can say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize my pastor was on board with that?
Well, the best, if you were looking for a list, the best list I think we have, if you go to our webpage, libertypastors.com or libertypastors.org, up on the top, we do have a map of churches, of pastors that have completed our training. Now, I can't promise you that every pastor has implemented everything we've asked them to do, but we can at least give you a list of pastors that have completed the training. And then moms and dads are just going to have to dig around a little bit in their community. And, you can either start with reaching out to Public School Exit, or you can start with doing an internet search for homeschool co-ops in the state and in your community, and work your way out from there. Yeah, if you go up to those three bars up there, I think on the right side, yeah, hit that.
Oh,
See that
there
map
it
of
is.
Liberty churches? There you go. There you
Yep.
go. Hit that,
All
and
right.
then you might just type in wherever you are, Jones or Arcadia or Edmond, wherever you happen to be, and you'll
Oh,
see.
wow.
So you
Okay.
see.
Look at
So
that.
that's the list of churches that have completed the training. And again, our
Oh, good
church is
job.
certainly, we probably are setting the bar in a lot of ways. So our church is engaged in everything. I can't tell you that every church is engaged in everything, but these are at least the pastors that have completed our training.
And
Right.
don't you,
So,
Pastor, don't you think that when churches start to do this and truly impact a community, and kids start going to churches for school instead of schools for schools, don't you think the government might take notice and possibly change a few things about the way they do things? I mean, the ripple effect would probably be uh, phenomenal if
Well,
there
that's
was
why
option B.
that's why, Julia, we've got to get engaged in this culture war, because as we
Yes,
continue to go in the godless direction we are going, obviously we're going to have a greater number of godless people making
right.
rules and laws. So, but the church is the strongest, according to, well, you see Liberty Counsel right there. Matt Stavers, a very dear friend, and of course one of the leading civil liberty, religious freedom attorneys in the country, down in Orlando. But Matt says that churches are the strongest defense against 501c, against the IRS or anybody else or the government. I mean, churches are literally hands off from the government. So, unless we're out here doing something insane like handling snakes or you know, shooting people, which we aren't, we're not doing either. But we can do just about. I mean, really, the government has no say so over what we do, because we are practicing Orthodox Christianity in every way imaginable here. I mean, in every facet of life. So churches are really a great way to facilitate Christian education or homeschool education, because, like I said, we are like a separate country. I mean, when you step onto the church ground, the federal government is hands off in many ways. Like I said, if I committed a bank robbery, I can't run back to the church and hide; they'll still come get me. But in many ways, this is a great platform from which to promote, civil liberty and religious liberty.
well, that's kind of a jump off point for another conversation that we wanted to have too. So, Julie and I and Rope we used to be big school choice proponents, and we used to say, "Hey, it's our money. We need it going where we want it to go." And after years of studying the issue and talking to people and really thinking about it, we've come to the conclusion that, I mean, yeah, the government puts a gun to your head and takes the money out of your pocket. But once it goes to the government, they use it for purposes that you don't get to earmark. So by the time they have it in their hands, it's not even yours anymore. It's now the property of the government, whatever government that is, whether it's, your local government, your state government, or the federal government. And it's kind of the same way, I liken it to a robbery. If you're on the street and somebody comes up to you with a gun and puts it in your face and says, "Give me your wallet." Well, the judicious thing is to give him your wallet, so you give him the wallet. Well, you don't have it anymore. I mean, it's gone. You're not going to get it back. And whatever the guy does with that money is on him. It's not on you anymore. And so we've come to the conclusion that so long as any government money is involved in education of your child, then the government is going to come along, because that's how it works. And they can say, no, it doesn't, but it absolutely does. You look at
100% of the time, government comes with government money.
And we look at Common Core, and all three of us were heavily involved in trying to stop Common Core in Oklahoma. And, the nation, of course, weren't really able to do that. It's still going strong in many parts of the country. But the point of the matter is that was one of the four pillars of the Obama administration, is they wanted Common Core, and Common Core infested everything. And I remember one of the things that people used to say about me when I would go out and speak against Common Core, and they'd say, "You homeschool your kids. What do you care?" And my argument was at the time, and it still today is the argument, and my argument has been proven right. I said, look, here's what's going to happen. Money is always king. As soon as the green light goes for Common Core, then every book manufacturer, every workbook, everything is going to be geared toward Common Core. And now the books that we use as homeschoolers are going to become Common Core infected. And that's it. Absolutely what happened. And now you have homeschoolers who are searching, trying to find old math books. It looks like Saxon, I think, has dropped their kind of Common Core edge, and they're going back to doing more traditional math. But the point of the matter is, that being said, to point out that anytime you get money from anything that is under the government auspices, it ends up being government involved. So just recently, our state legislature believed that it was important to pass a voucher system. It's a voucher system, but they call it a tax credit because they couldn't get the voucher passed. So this is a tax credit, but you can't be credited for money that you didn't put into the system. And that's called a refundable tax credit. Refundable tax credit is you didn't put the money in, but we're going to give it to you anyway.
That's distribution of wealth.
Yes, which is socialism. Yeah. I mean, if I'm stealing money from Julia to give it to my neighbor to put their kids in private school, that's just, that's redistribution of wealth. That's socialism. So, now, they're actually, the Oklahoma State, charter school board voted by one vote to allow a Catholic school to be funded by public tax dollars. So obviously we're not proponents of that. I could, probably give 5 reasons, but I thought we'd ask you about that. And, as a pastor, what your kind of thoughts about that are, and we'll just kind of flesh it out.
Well, you brought up some excellent points, and I know this whole school choice debate, I know good people that are on our side that have fallen on both sides of the issue.
Right.
And sadly, I have to agree that you two are ultimately going to be proven right. Yeah. So as I said earlier, in practice, or in theory, there's no such thing. Again, here's point one. Here's point and counterpoint. In theory, the government doesn't have any money. In fact, that's why in Washington, all spending bills begin in the House, because originally the House of Representatives represented we the people, and the Senate was there to represent the states. Well, states don't have any money either. The only money that the government has to spend is our money that at one time we chose to pay a certain amount of it. Now they just take whatever they want, but it's
They
our
steal it.
money. So exactly, they steal it. You're exactly
Or
right.
or
So
take your
so
house.
technically, it's our money. Yeah, you're right. So the state didn't have any money. So as far as people being able to spend their own money, I'm all an advocate for that. But as you said, nobody looks at it that way, and including no legislature or Congress or president or governor. They think it's their money. So once they're giving the money, then there will be, although probably not for 5 years or maybe 10 years, but they will be. Oh, Rope was right. Yeah. There will be strings attached. You know it's coming. So, all I can tell you is you just got to do battle one day at a time. And, the landscape is quickly changing. I'll be honest with you, ladies, 10 years ago, even though you both know I've been out there beating and we need a revival in America drum for 20 years. And we were doing
Yeah.
Reclaiming Oklahoma for Christ conferences
Yes.
and Reclaiming
Right.
America for Christ conferences back in 2006.
Yep.
And I was
Right.
warning what was coming as far as Marxism and socialistic policies. But I never dreamed that we would be as bad as we are. For example, with this transgender nonsense.
Yeah.
I mean, I always knew there's going to be the battle with the LGBT, whatever, lesbian, gays, but the idea of doesn't matter what my biology says, I can be what I want to be. It's like, well, that's just
Well,
absurd. So I never thought we'd be here. So who
well,
knows what the
Paul,
landscape's going to look like in 10 years? But
I've started
go ahead.
looking at that. We had 50 years of chopping up children in the womb. Now they've
Yeah.
just taken it to
No,
the next step and they're chopping up
no.
children outside the womb. That's exactly what
Excellent.
they're doing.
A sad but excellent observation, Julia. So, but no, ladies, I agree. You're exactly right. So, what do you do now? Oklahoma's passed this, and it was led by legislators that would identify as being conservative, and they're
Yeah.
wanting choice out there. But
Well, didn't
you're
we just
right.
talk about identifying as things?
Yeah.
Well, basically what this is. It's I think it's a Trojan horse.
Yeah.
We think it's a big victory, and like I said, I'm also on the advisory committee for Liberty Council. They've started their own homeschool curriculum, which is excellent. It's called Covenant Journey Academy. Of
Oh,
course,
okay.
Liberty University is a sponsor of Liberty Pastors Camps. They have their own homeschool curriculum. Of course, John Birch Society, the Freedom Project, they've got homeschool curriculum.
Yeah.
But I looked at a couple of them yesterday. Liberty Councils is like maybe somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 a year, depending on elementary to high school. Liberty University is not quite that much, but it's somewhere between $2,500 a year. So there is additional cost. So initially, the idea of having that subsidized is going to be very attractive. But you two
Right.
ladies, I wanted to be on record right now. You two are 100% right. Within 5 years, maybe as many as 10 years, they're going to try to drop the hammer and say, wait a second, you're taking our money. We want control
Yeah.
of your children. And that's the
Well, and
battle.
here's
You hear
the
the teachers saying, they're their children
here's
now. They're
the
not our children.
here's the other thing, and I remember sitting in your congregation one day when you were talking specifically about Satan clubs. Do you remember? You probably mentioned it numerous times, but I remember sitting there and you were talking about, shoot, even now, we have Satan clubs coming in at public schools. And I was like, that's a joke. That's hilarious. Well, so the other day, I guess it's been about a week and a half ago now, several podcasts ago, Michael and I did one together because Michael's been concerned about the Satan clubs. And so Michael and I did a podcast where Michael pulled in his screen and was showing all of the stuff about the Satan clubs. And I frankly, I used to think nothing shocked me anymore. That was really shocking. And one of the arguments that I've made for a long time is this: if secular money is used in Christian private schools, it's like an infection. You can't take or drink a vial of bacteria and then somehow not get the infection that the bacteria, was. So if we think that we're going to give secular money, government money, to a private Christian school, and that somehow nothing nefarious or bad is going to happen. It's literally as dumb as I feel like being a boy today, and so therefore I feel like I'm a chair today, therefore I am. It's literally that dumb. And so what's going to happen, and mark my words, is if they let this stand where we can give public money to this is a Catholic school, so you'd call it Catholic, not necessarily Christian, but still in all, if you would give it to a religious school, you're going to have the ACLU come in and make the argument that Satan is a religion,
and
that Satanism is a religion, and you can't say it's not. And now my tax dollars are going to go to funding a satanic school here in Oklahoma. And don't forget, we've already had the Satanists in Oklahoma say, if you're going to put the 10 Commandments on the Capitol property, which is public property, then we get to put Baphomet right there with his kids and his little, Satan Bible. So I think, do you feel like I'm barking up the wrong tree here?
No, I think you're exactly here. This is how it's going to go. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And quite frankly, I was in a meeting a couple of weeks ago. I like Ryan Walters. I know he may not do everything that you agree with, but he is trying to fight, I think, to some degree for parental, for moms and dads rather than the school.
Absolutely.
And we went down there to support him in one bloodletting. They were trying to get after him a couple of months ago. And what you're saying literally came up in this meeting before school choice was ever signed into law. And we had both Democrats and even Republicans raise the question. Well, when we're funding these schools, these out here, how are we going to get reports? Are we going to have accountability of the students? It's like,
there you go.
So exactly. No, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. Really, the only way, the real solution to this is just to lower. And again, this will be real easy. We should lower our taxes to where we have more of our own money, so we don't have to send it to them so they can launder it and send it back to us with strings attached to begin with.
Wait.
That ain't gonna happen.
They just got through dancing us a jig for taxing us the most ever.
They were slapping each other on the back because our legislature passed the biggest budget ever in Oklahoma. Yay! I mean, holy cow.
Yeah, so.
Well, that's what, ladies, let me also say, that's where some of the worldview training is so critical. Exactly. That's why we're trying to do what we're doing. We work with David Barton and Rick Green as well as part of our training, and we want to train the pastors, and then we also want to train the congregations. One of the problems we have today is we have Christians that run for office that have good intent, but they've never been taught what the civil governing authority is really supposed to be doing and what they're not supposed to be doing. In other words, they don't have a biblical worldview. They don't understand where
not steal.
Well, they never think of it that way, but that's part of it. They don't have a biblical worldview.
Right.
So we'll take a Christian, Joe Baptist over here, who's deacon at his church, and he's now state senator Baptist, and next thing you know, he's doing the same garbage that the last guys were doing, because they really don't have the principle within them of what the civil governing authority is supposed to do, but more importantly, what the civil governing authority is not supposed to do, what the parents are supposed to be doing or others supposed to do. It's like the last 2 years with the insanity we've lived through with the masking. Now what? That's self-government, or possibly family government if you're a child. But if you determine the risk and you are convinced that if wearing a mask is going to reduce your risk of catching a cold, then by all means, wear 10 of them. I don't care. It doesn't affect me. But it's not the mayor's responsibility to mandate. It's now the 1st of October. It's the fall season. Everybody in my city has to take vitamin C and NAC and daily. That's not your business. I mean, so that's where we have the problem. We have the civil governing authority trying to control the church, trying to control the family, trying to control the individual. And that is, by definition, that's what tyranny is. That's what a communist country is. So,
well, it's interesting that you say that, because Julie and I were just talking about this very same thing, actually, in the car last night on the way home from Stevens County, is that, you get good people who go to the legislature, and we were so disappointed in so many legislators that we've backed for years and years who fell for this tax credit stuff and voted for this. And, we just kept thinking, how is that? They'll stand and make a speech. We don't ever want to be socialist and this is tyranny. And, but then they'll pass bills that specifically create tyranny that are specifically socialist, like, redistribution of wealth. I can't tell you the number of times I've had legislators tell me the reason why they have to pass a tax credit so that Oklahoma can have movies here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So what is a tax credit? A tax credit is picking and choosing losers and winners. So you're a winner if you get government money, but you're a loser if you don't get government money. That's not free enterprise. It doesn't work like that. You're picking winners and losers, and they'll vote for that every time while then going someplace to stand on a stump and speech against socialism. So you're exactly 150% correct about that whole thing. We have got to start teaching these people who are running for the legislature and want to actually represent us, how to represent us.
Yeah, and that's where quite frankly, it's all of what we're doing with you all as homeschool moms, teaching those proper realms of government and what is expected and what isn't. Us as pastors doing a better job of making disciples. And quite frankly, for some reason, again, what part of your life is Jesus not the Lord over? Well, he's the Lord over all of it. So he's the Lord over your politics too. And every pastor comes out of seminary would answer the question correctly. If you ask them, say, what are the three institutions that God established on planet Earth? Every one of them to a T would say God established the home, God established the church, and God established this realm called civil government. And that's correct. So, but if that's correct, then it's just as biblical to teach about proper civil government, as God's will for civil government, as is teach about God's will for the home or God's will for the church. But we don't, most pastors don't have the slightest clue. We've been taught politics is dirty and we can't talk about this. And so then we get Christians running for office because they want to change things. Then once they get there, they don't know what they're supposed to do or not supposed to do. So we perpetuate the problem, but hopefully we're beginning to address it. We're certainly trying, and I know you're certainly trying. So
yeah. Well, I'll never forget, and I think I even told you this story, Pastor Paul, because it happened one time when we were in the middle of the Common Core fight, and I was like, I can't even believe this happened. I was in the office with a House of Representatives in a representative's office, and we were talking about Common Core and how we could stop it and repeal it from law. And he leaned back in his chair, and I'll never forget this. I said something like, well, this is kind of the job of a representative, is to, stop things that would, affect families. And he said, oh, I don't know. And he leaned back in his chair and he says, Jenny, our job here is to write laws.
Oh,
and they think that. I mean, we've been a state for what, 114, 115 years, and every legislative cycle they'll come up with some 2,000 new bills, as if we needed 2,000 more laws. So yeah, but that's what they think. That's how we can prove we're doing something. Let's create some more law.
That's exactly what he said. He said, well,
I think they ought to be pulling about 10 off the books for every one they add to it.
But that's absolutely, the truth. And I even said to this man at the time, I said, well, no, I think we might be mixed up there, because I believe that it's your job to protect my liberty. That's what your job as a representative is. That's it. I mean, that's your only job. So anything else that you do falls under that. And if you're going to tell me that, school has to do this, then I don't have any liberty there. That doesn't fall under your purview. So I think
they could actually pass one law that would fix the whole thing. And that would be to make taxes voluntary.
Yes.
At that point, government would become instantly the right size. And they would be representative of the people, because they don't have money from anybody that doesn't want them to do what they're doing. So that would fix it.
Well, I think, Jenny, you both said something a minute ago, struck a chord, and I think this kind of gets to the root of the issue. You talked about the purpose of civil government, And that's what Jefferson said in our Declaration of Independence. The whole purpose of the civil governing authority is to secure, make sure and defend, secure our
Yep.
unalienable God-given rights. So that's the job of civil government. And of course, Jefferson also stated, you can only play by one set of rules. I mean,
Yeah.
if we're going to all play Monopoly and we're all playing by different sets of rules, then it's not really a game. I mean, it's chaos. But in America, you go all the way back to our founding. And this is actually secular history. This is not something I got from David Barton's website, but a professor named Patricia Bonomi from New York University. And she was a historian, research of the War for Independence. She concluded that at the time of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, that 98.5% of the citizens of the colonies were not just Christian, but were Protestant Christian.
Oh,
The other
interesting.
1.5% was Catholic and Jewish. So when
Oh,
Jefferson said the laws of nature and nature's God, we built our country on a biblical platform of truth. And again, no one is forced to become a Christian.
right.
But is murder illegal in America? Well, yes, it is. Well, why is that? Because God said, thou shalt not murder. What's the definition of a family in America? Well, it's a mom and a dad, because that's what God said. Is stealing wrong? Well, yes, it is. It's wrong in America because the Bible says so. So we have operated for over 200 years under that understanding. But beginning after World War II, we've been deteriorating. And now when we get to a point where when they make the statement that says if you're going to put a 10 commandments out by the Capitol, then we can put a statue of Satan out there. Well, that is just historically nonsense. And we are a Judeo-Christian society. And again, that gives everyone the freedom to choose to go to church or not, to choose
Right.
to believe or not. But the society itself, you enjoy the blessings of liberty. If we were to go to Saudi Arabia on a vacation, which I can't imagine why anybody would want
Yeah.
to. Well, maybe it may
I'll
be getting
pass.
better than we are here, but you have the understanding that's a Muslim country.
Yeah.
So you ladies aren't going to get off the plane wearing a mini skirt and walk down because it's a Muslim country. I'm not going to get off the plane handing out Bibles to everybody because it's a Muslim country. You kind of
Right.
know the rules when you go,
Yeah.
and you have to operate. And in America, we have been up until 50, 60 years ago. And that's when we began to really, well, you all know it actually goes back 100 years ago, probably early 1800s is where we began to unravel,
Right.
and it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. I guess since the father of public education, John Dewey, got so heavily involved in the
Right.
early 1900s, that's when
Margaret
we really
Sanger.
began to go off the cliff.
Yeah. So, and let me just make a quick point too, because we're a Christian organization. We're run by women and men that are Christian. But there are a lot of people, sadly, who aren't anymore. But I think the argument needs to be made that whether you're a Christian or not, one of the things that I really, people who haven't had their eyes open yet and they don't really understand how quickly we're descending into, a communist type of tyranny. They and really need their eyes open. One of my favorite books, and I'm listening to it again on audio right now, is Cleon Skousen's book, The Naked Communist.
Excellent.
And I just really adjure everybody to read. It's called The Naked Communist. It's pretty easy to remember, but it was such a good book. Cleon wrote it, I think, in the 60s, early 60s or late 50s. And it was such a great book. The whole idea was to write the book because they were coming out of the 40s, not really understanding communism and what a threat it actually was. And the government knew, but people didn't really know. And Skousen wanted to write a book to make sure that it was something that was consumable by just regular Joe on the street. And so he took all of the information that he'd learned as in the FBI and created this book, The Naked Communist. And it was so good that, and I can't remember which representative did it, but one of the representatives in the 60s actually read it into the congressional record because it was so good. So, and actually, if you go back and you read The Naked Communist and you digest the manifesto and the way Skousen outlines it, you'll understand that we actually, I think we're only missing one of and it's 28, I think, of the tenets that the communists wanted to get into American society in order to move it toward a communist structure. So we're there -1.
Yep.
And if you don't believe me, then look up and read The Naked Communist.
Well, or you can look up, you can Google 1963 Communist Manifesto Congressional Record. It'll pull it right up for you.
I think it was January 63, the 45 points or 45 goals to establish communism in America without violence. Yep. Yeah, it's out
Holy
there.
cow.
Skousen is a great that is a great book. I recommend that. And then if anybody hasn't, and I don't know where you went to school if you haven't, but if you haven't read 1984,
right?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
But here's another one.
Oh, 5,000 Year Leap, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't have my. I need to actually mirror my screen, but yes, the 5,000 Year Leap, another Skousen book. That's you know, I made my son. Because he had to have a government credit, or I wanted him to have a government credit. I made him actually do a workbook associated with that book for his government credit.
You're
so
giving him a better education than he would get at school.
Yes, absolutely.
Although
fact, we've got about 8 of our courses that are actually on our website. Also, if you, I think it's under like a box that says like, small group or small group class. And so, but it also our video training on civil government would be good. Yeah, it's on our Liberty Pastors website. That also would be good to go through with your kids as well.
Okay, hold on a second. I'm trying to pull that up for people so they can see that right now. Okay, so are we under presentations? Is that what we're under?
No, go up to the boxes up there. Those 3 lines up there again. If you would.
Right.
And then let's see, training materials. Go down to training material.
Oh, it pops. And then, it's weird.
So pastors and small group training.
Okay.
Sorry, that pastors and small group training.
All right, hold on a second. Pastors and small group training.
There,
this is what.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hit that right there. There you go. And there's like 8 or 10 courses there. In fact, we should have some.
Look at that. There we go.
Answer. Yeah. But it's biblical principles of civil government. Did God have an ideal form of civil government? Overview of America. Then Dan does a message or lesson on Romans 13, the myth of separation of church and state, the Johnson Amendment, pastor churches, political activity, so economics and freedom. So that is great.
Lots of stuff.
Yeah, that's some basic
Bob
training.
McEwen. I love Bob. He's so good.
Yeah, he's hilarious. Wonderful. Brilliant man, gracious gentleman, and good teacher. Good teacher.
Yeah, so you have some great teachers. Scarborough, another great teacher there, and Alex Newman, he's really good too. So you've got a lot of them here that are really, really really good. So
it's there for anybody to use. That's a lot of what we do with pastors in person. So it's available for anybody to go over it at their leisure.
Paul, have y'all been able to track as far as how many of the pastors are actually able to put the schooling stuff in particular in motion in their churches? Do you have any idea?
We haven't yet on a broad scale, but we've had great testimonials come back in. In fact, when we're done with the show later, you guys might go. We've got a few testimonials on the front page of our website, just short ones, like 1 to 4 minutes, that are really encouraging. But we have been just thrilled by the organic response of our pastors. I mean, we had a small church in Texarkana that got excited, went back. I mean, they literally ran about 75 people for church. They decided to start a homeschool. And their church has since about doubled. Two other churches in the community decided to start homeschools as well. A local businessman underwrote all the curriculum. So it's just been amazing what's happened in Texarkana. The man there up in the upper left is now the mayor of Lake Wells, Florida, and their church has taken over the whole city council and everything. It's been amazing what's going on there. We got a gentleman from Apopka, Florida, that's now serving in the Florida legislature. So we've had some really great success stories. And literally, we've got the pastor in the lower left-hand corner is from California. We haven't done a camp in California, but he came to Oklahoma City to one of our camps. Pastor in the upper right-hand corner is from Illinois. We haven't done one in Illinois, but he came to one of our camps in St. Louis. So
Well,
Anyway,
I think a lot of what has been said for years has been, part of the reduction in Christians, people who actually consider themselves Christians, has just been, and the falling away of churches. I mean, it's the saddest thing to me to be able to drive by a church that's been boarded up, and you're like, oh my goodness, how does this kind of thing happen? But I think part of what's, been said, which is realistically true, when you have pastors who aren't really preaching a biblical message, and the people who are sitting in the pews aren't really getting fed, they're just getting entertained, or they're just getting a message that tickles their ears or whatever, then there's no real, I mean, when the world comes crashing down around them, there's really no reason for them to stay. And we've just made, unfortunately, we kind of reduced Jesus to a little guy that we put on the dashboard of the car.
yeah.
He moves around a lot and seems happy, but we don't really know what Jesus stands for anymore. And we have so few pastors, it seems like, that are willing to actually, stand for that. And I've said this before. I just wrote a big screed about this on my Facebook page the other day. Just like you said, Paul, nobody's telling you have to become a Christian. Nobody's saying, hey, you have to become a Christian. But here's the thing. If you're going to call yourself a Christian, there are tenets that are actually prescribed throughout the Bible and stated specifically by Jesus. And if you don't want to follow those, you shouldn't call yourself a Christian. You really can't. So it just boils down to, if you don't want to be a Christian, don't be a Christian. Obviously, the three of us would rather you were, because we like to consider ourselves disciples of Jesus, and we want to make new disciples. Obviously, we would like that. But if you don't want to be, that's fine. But if you are going to be a Christian, call yourself a Christian, there are certain tenets that you have to subscribe to, and those are in the Bible, and it's handy to read the book. I said something the other day that cracked myself up. I was like, isn't it funny how today so many people are authorities on the Constitution, the Bible, without having read either thing?
Right.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
and one of the things that I always just a principle, marriage is holy matrimony.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why does the state have anything to do with it at all whatsoever?
Right.
The reason it started is so they could get our money for getting married. But
and track us.
The state should have absolute. It's one of those things. It's like, now that the state can take your money for it, then they're going to tell you what marriage is.
Yeah,
that is
right.
a religious Christian thing that God has told us to do. It has nothing to do with government.
Well, it's not just, even birth certificates. I mean, it used to be your family record was kept in the front of your family Bible.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's, when you went in, if you had to prove that you were married, you take your family Bible in there and say, here's where it is. But,
right.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that too, because what would be the reason for doing that? And this is the thing I try to get people to think about constantly. Let's think deeply about things. Let's not just listen to them. So let's think deeply about that. So why would you want to know? Why would the state want a record of the birth of my children? Why? Well, that's data. Data is control. And here's how they use data for control. Oh, I found out that the White family has 2 adopted children. I wonder what government program we could institute that would help those adopted children. Well, I wonder if those adopted children were being raised by guidelines of the state. What guidelines could we put in place so that we can save children? So this is the reason why we don't want government to have anything to do with other than fire, police, basic roads, basic things. I mean, when we allow government to overstep the bounds of anything that we do on a personal level, anything, we're going to end up wishing we hadn't.
Well, biblically, the purpose of government is to punish evil and to protect the good, that we may live peaceably in all godliness. And there's four realms of government, and they work in inverse relationship. You've got self-government. That's first, of course, Adam in the Genesis 1, Adam, don't eat of the tree. You've got family government, Adam and Eve, okay, have children. Then, of course, you have the establishment of the church in the New Testament and the church government. And then you've got civil government, which is established in Genesis chapter 9. If you have a lot of moral, self-governing, God-fearing individuals, and you have strong traditional nuclear families where moms and dads love each other, they love their children, raise them, and you have strong churches, then you don't have much need of civil government. As you said, Jenny, really all you need is the fire department and police department, and they're not all that busy because they're just writing speeding tickets because you got moral people. But when you have people that aren't capable of self-government, they've been taught that they're little animals, and then when you have broken homes and you have dead churches, then boy, you can't have a civil government that you've got to have civil government controlling every facet of life, and you literally have to have a state police to maintain control and order.
You
Quite
said
frankly,
this one.
The civil government is now the ones perpetrating the tyranny on the people. So it's
Right.
split. It's
And
split. And
you
it's
said
always
something.
that.
Yeah, you said something one time in church about the fact that as self responsibility gets smaller, government can only
Yep.
get
Yep.
bigger. And I thought, because you even did that, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's such a perfect thing
Yep.
to think on. I mean, we have to, but Julie and I were talking about this yesterday and last night in the car too. I want to create a T-shirt that says, "What is it, Julie? Bring shame back."
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point.
You
Because
you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
You're not
that
not
was
supposed to
it.
celebrate it and demand that other people celebrate it. There should be shame and repentance and correction, hopefully. But yeah,
Right.
Yeah, that was it. You should be ashamed of yourself on the back, and then on the front it was "Bring shame back." But it's true. I mean, we just don't have, there's no, we don't believe in God anymore. And we don't believe in, we don't have any, we're so lacking in morals. And when we don't have any morals, we can't, know what to do with ourselves. And so we just simply will do anything and not feel shameful about it at all.
It's complete selfishness. It's what it turned into. Either you're loving your neighbor as you would love yourself, or you want to take from your neighbor to make yourself better. Those are the two things. And government is currently working for Plan B. So it's not.
So we're coming up on a little over an hour, and we try to keep this at about an hour so that people don't go, it's too long, I can't listen to it. So I know we do. Regularly we fail at that, but I do want to make sure that we recap. We've got several live viewers now, and so I just kind of want to recap. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up again. So Paul, if you want to just briefly talk about.
Go to Liberty Pastors. You can find out information that we teach there. You can also see a list of churches of pastors that have graduated from our training. Again, one of the next steps, we tell these pastors, you need to start a homeschool or partner with one. Now, I can't tell you that every pastor does that, but that's what we admonish them to do. But we encourage every church to partner with the homeschool co-op, provide an alternative source of education for your children, your community, other than just the local public schools. Go to Public School Exit. You can call them there. They can help you, walk with you as you begin homeschooling at home or find co-ops in your area. So that is a great source of information.
Yeah, they have quite a bit on their website.
And there's wonderful curriculum out there, different price range. Becca used to be good. I don't know if they still are. I'm assuming they are, but you got Liberty University has a homeschool curriculum and academy. Liberty Council has what's called Covenant Journey Academy, both excellent, comprehensive education, honors courses, but everything biblical worldview. So there's lots of great curriculum out there. Yeah,
Oh,
there
and
you go
on
right there.
public school,
Yeah,
yeah, they
yeah,
do
yeah.
have an
There it is.
online. So if
Mhm,
you go
mhm.
backwards, so if you're looking at methods and you think, I'd like to do an online school, they actually
Mhm,
have a
mhm.
number of them right
Yep,
here that you could actually find yourself, including,
yep.
look at that, the Ron Paul curriculum.
Oh, very
So
good.
this particular website is really,
Mhm.
really, really super handy. So any of you who are interested in, becoming involved in homeschooling, public school exit, let's say it one more time,
.com.
publicschoolexit.com. And Pastor, you're involved in that.
Yep, I'm on the advisory board, sure am, and I'm also in full disclosure, we are partners with Liberty University. They work with us in our camps now. In fact, our next camp is going to be at Lynchburg on August 28th through 31st. And then I'm also on the advisory council of Covenant Journey Academy. So those are, I would recommend those. Of course, been a John Birch member for decades and not very terribly active, but I just support their work and honoring God and America and getting back to the principles of the Declaration and the Constitution. So, but
Well,
they've
and they
got
have
good curriculum
Freedom
there, Freedom Project.
Academy, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Freedom
And
Freedom
Project.
Academy.
I
Yep.
would I
Yeah,
would
Freedom.
even suggest, if you're a homeschool group or trying to put a homeschool group together and need a church to partner with, if you'll go on that Liberty
Yep.
Pastors
Yep.
and look at the
Yep.
pastors that
Yeah.
have already graduated, they
Yep.
are
Check with
already
them.
going to be inclined to say yes if they're not already doing it.
Julia, that's a great idea. And I'm sad that we didn't think of it and say it already. That's a great point. Yeah, look there and go to those pastors and say, hey, Pastor, we need a place for our homeschool. We understand that you graduated from Liberty Pastors or Liberty Pastors training.
Yes,
Ta-da!
yes. Let's partner.
Let's
Well,
partner.
that's weird. It won't let me connect to Liberty Pastors again for some reason. That's very
Well,
interesting. So,
libertypastors.com, isn't it?
yeah, so it's very easy to find libertypastors.com. So, Pastor, we sure appreciate you being with us
My
today. It's
pleasure,
always
lady.
a joy to
Yes,
talk to you. Uh,
absolutely.
and
My pleasure, ladies. Thank
thank you
you for
so
having me
much
as a
for what
guest.
you're doing.
Oh,
It's I mean, I just don't think how often we talk to people who say, but I'd love to take my kids out, but I don't even know how to do that, or I don't know what to do. Oh, and Dana said, we will
Good.
add public school exit to our homeschool series and share for anyone who's interested. So that's great. So hopefully we can get that out there. And when people say things to us like, I just don't know how to do this, or, how to go about it, this is the way to do it. Taking government money to put your kid in a private school isn't the way to do it. You're going to, you may be super happy about that now, but I promise
You'll
you
rue
it's going
today.
to,
yeah.
junkyard dog will turn around and
Yeah.
bite you in the backside. So, all right, Pastor, we will talk to you again at another point. But again, thank you so much for sharing with us today. And,
You
God
always.
bless you.
My pleasure, ladies, and thank you for what you do, and God bless both of you.
Have a great last day of VBS.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye. That was a wonderful interview. So happy about that. For those of you that are still live with us, we're getting ready to call it a day because it's the weekend. Yay! But if you'll pass this video on to other people who you think might be interested in homeschooling, we really covered a lot of great information today.
Yeah.
Yes. And don't forget, this is your time. This is your time. This is the summer. This is when you go out and you find those things that are going to work for you and you get them in line so that you can public school exit come August, and you're not doing that.
And I want to mention the Wednesday when we were talking to Sam Sorbo, there was a lot of great information in that was the why, the heart, the encouragement part of, yes, you can do this, and this is why you must do this. And we've got to rescue our children. That is the bottom line. We've got to rescue our children. So go back and listen to Sam on Wednesday, and then share this with your friends as well. And just lots of great information. I feel blessed this week we got some really important information out there for folks.
And there have been quite a few people who have found us on YouTube, which is great. So you'll notice that we have a very old and a very long-standing YouTube channel, which is where we're broadcasting live right now. But we also there are a lot of people who don't like YouTube, but we do have a Rumble channel. All you have to do is go to Rumble and just search Reclaim Oklahoma Parent Empowerment, and we pop right up. And you can get to our channel there, and we store all of the live videos that we do during the week and put them up on our Rumble channel. So you can share the Rumble channel with people who don't necessarily like YouTube either. And normally we don't have viewers on Twitter for whatever reason, but we do actually go live there, and you can find us on Twitter at RopeOK is what we are. So we're out there. Find us. We try to get you information, so use it.
Yes.
All right, Juliet, thanks again for going with me last night. That was fun.
Oh yeah.
Thank you as always for doing the podcast with me. It's always fun, and we always tend to have more to say than we have time, I think.
Yes,
so
always.
Yeah. So everybody have a blessed weekend, and we will see you again on Wednesday. And on Wednesday, we will have as our guest Jake Merrick. So famous Jake Merrick, who has his show on 98
Freedom 96.9.
Thank you. Freedom 96.9. And so Jake will be on with us on Wednesday. So please tell all your friends, and we hope to see you then. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you then. Have a great weekend.